Hey, this is Pamela Schneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services. And I just have to mention, these flowers have been alive for like 2.5 weeks. I have been repurposing them. So anyone who's thinking about floral needs to reconsider grocery store floral, because holy cow, these things have been alive for forever. And I'm
Well, your
still enjoying
timing
it.
actually is quite poor because this is the highest volume floral time the next week, leading up to a certain holiday.
Uh, it is true, and I probably won't buy flowers for the
Yeah,
next 2
they
weeks.
get really expensive now.
These are just gonna have to keep living for the next couple of weeks. I'll just turn them around so they look good on this side, and I'll wait out the prices. But yeah, I mean, you gotta give some props to the flower grower in Costco for their excellent floral. I digress. It is the week in review. Greg, I noticed that you are wearing red. What's that for?
It is a Super Bowl week, and last year I thought this is the first time in my life it's going to happen, and what do you know, it happened again. So to honor our team doing it again, I've grown my Andy Reid mustache for the week, and it will come off after the Super Bowl. I'm told by my wife.
Yeah, I noticed that earlier this week when I was editing that video from Revel Greens, or Revel Greens, I'm sorry. There were a few chuckles in the Riemenschneider households. So congrats on the Andy Reid mustache, and I'm sure that
Nice.
your family will be happy to see it go after the Chiefs win on Sunday.
Well, either way, the mustache loses.
Speaking of greens and videos, that Revel Greens video that you did kind of brought up for me something where I said, you know what, I should really go back and pull all of the press releases that I've had over the last 6 months, and because there's so much investment and there's so many new greenhouse growers that are coming onto market. Not only established ones, like I talked with Chris Veillon from Pure Flavor, which put in some new acreage in Leamington, but that's the traditional cukes and tomatoes and bell peppers. What is fascinating though is that is all is all lighted, which is something that 10 years ago the guys in Leamington were not considering. Now it's become a necessity. But the other ones are the vertical farms, the leafy greens farmers that are just sprouting up all over, especially in the Midwest. It's just fascinating to see their growth curve over the last, even just the last year, the last 2 years. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's huge, and yeah, I talked to Tom Thompson with Revel Greens this week, and they are Minnesota based, and they do leafy greens, and they have plans to expand in both California and Texas. And one of their big angles is offering local produce in those areas that can be harvested and delivered within 24 hours. There are a lot of things going for greenhouse produce. And one of the things that he kept mentioning is scalability. And that's a key for them in order to have retail contracts and not just be a spot in the market, but be able to do a year-long plan. And as more companies get these investments and get all these greenhouses, this acreage online, they have that scalability. They don't really talk so much about the scalability of bringing price down, but that of course has to be a part of it because they're competing at retail with field-grown product. And if they're 3 times as much, the consumer makes an easy decision that that's not worth it. And I think it's an uncomfortable conversation about their growth that they don't mention very often, but I don't think they're looking at the peak of their like the tipping point where there's just too many of them, because I don't think they're considering that they're competing against each other so much as they're competing against the field grown and the established products in the market. And the food safety part of it is a factor, and it's a shame that it is, but and it would be dirty marketing to push it that way. But as we've seen in produce, you don't have to always be 100% accurate with letting consumers go the direction they want to go, like we've covered with citrus and vitamin C. There's a lot of produce items that offer immunity properties and not just citrus. And it's not even the biggest in vitamin C, but consumers want to be led down that path. So you let them go down that path. Are consumers going to start looking at field grown leafy greens and say, that just seems too dangerous to me? And then they look at a greenhouse that hasn't had any of these food safety issues. They don't deal with the field grown issues in nature.
Well, I really feel like the environment, this wild west of expansion for a lot of these greenhouse growers and indoor farming, vertical farming, container farming, it reminds me of back a couple of years ago at South by Southwest. Matt Barnard, I think it was, from Plenty, came out swinging, talking about his concept that was still in a pilot phase at that time. And they have San Francisco startup, and he really just said some disparaging things about field grown product, and especially iceberg lettuce. And he envisioned that these container farms and these local farms are going to be the death of the commodity iceberg kind of lettuce that is losing favor with consumers. That's undeniable. And then, you know, romaine has its own problems with public image, with some, it is associated with a lot of the outbreaks. So there are a lot of factors going into this that are, you know, lending a lot of confidence in this greenhouse container, you know, indoor farming thing going on right now. And you're seeing a lot of money going into it as well. And it's hundreds of millions of dollars that we're seeing, even just weekly, invested into these farms. So it's something to definitely take a look at. The thing that I'm looking at is, like you mentioned, is the scale and the cost analysis, because there's only so much room at retail or even at food service for SKUs of fancy greens. And so, you know, the thing that makes iceberg and the thing that makes romaine so appealing is that they aren't fancy, honestly, and they're very ubiquitous. Food service loves it because it's cheap and easy to use in a salad. It's familiar with a lot of consumers. When you get into the weeds, and I'm not talking about the weeds in plants, but just get into the different SKUs. Some of them are amazing, and I'm a big fan. But not all consumers are going to go after that. So we have to make sure that these growers are not only bringing an excellent product to the marketplace, but they're also bringing the support to help boost consumption and demand of these products as well.
Yeah, there's absolutely an argument to be made for macro food. And, you know, I'm never one to just get into the foodie edge and say everyone should eat organic. There has to be enough for the masses. And with some of those lettuces that are relatively cheap, they can be the base for so many different things, and you can be versatile with them. So there's absolutely nothing wrong, and they're healthy and they're nutritious. One of the angles that I really do like with the greenhouse as it starts to scale is the local angle, because there's a number of greenhouses that are starting to be built in Appalachia. We've had stories about that, like App Harvest is in Kentucky, and you can't grow field grown quantity lettuce in most of the country, but you can grow field grown quantity vegetables in these greenhouses. And as that scales, that becomes a local thing, and that's a good thing. I like that. And it's kind of expansive thinking, and I hope that they can get economies of scale and not just be a niche item.
Yeah, for sure. And it'll solve a lot of problems. It will solve a lot of shelf life issues. It will solve transportation issues. You know, how many days in a truck does it take to get from California or Yuma to Maine? It's ridiculous. But there's a plethora of greenhouse growers that are starting up and have been in business for a couple of years and are really starting to reach those markets. So fascinating to watch. Other thing. Oh, you had something?
No, I never like the excuses. That's the way we've always done things. That even people in produce know that is not acceptable, and that is not innovative.
Yeah, and we can't shut off are thinking, because these new guys are coming in and they have a very venture capital aggressive and enthusiastic, and honestly not afraid of failure. They're not, some of these are not very conservative about where they're going and the money they're raising and the markets they're going after. So it's refreshing to see in some ways, but it's also scary for some other areas of the marketplace. We kind of hit on it a little bit, but you have a little bit of fun news, a column that you wrote about what Tom Brady's diet is newsworthy for a lot of reasons. Part of the reason is that he's pretty much your age and he's out there as a quarterback in the Super Bowl. And he attributes a lot of that to a very healthy diet. But the Chiefs aren't getting as much press for a lot of the efforts that they're making. What are they doing to make sure that they're in tip-top shape?
Well, one might even say there's a friend of mine involved. I've known Leslie Bonsi through her work with PBH, and I've been a PBH volunteer. She's one of PBH's ambassadors, and she happens to be the official nutritionist for the Kansas City Chiefs. Even though she doesn't live in Kansas City, she is the Kansas City Chiefs official nutritionist. And prior to this year, she had flown in every week to work with the team, the players, staff, the strength and conditioning group to work on their diet. And I had to talk with her this week because I'm a Chiefs fan living in Kansas City, and I know that she works for them. And we had a nice talk, and it was fun listening to her talk about the kinds of things that the Chiefs like. For instance, smoothies have become an increasingly popular thing for both players and staff because it's an easy way to get a lot of fruits into your diet quickly. And it's also a fun contrast to Tom Brady, who some of his nutrition ideas are fundamentally sound and some of them are way out there. He has a extreme bias against nightshade vegetables.
Yeah.
For example, claiming that they're not anti-inflammatory enough. They are. But one of the things Leslie said is fresh produce is great for athletes because of three main properties. One is they're full of liquid, so they're good for hydration. They're anti-inflammatory, as Tom Brady said. Oh, well, vitamins and minerals. Of course, they're chock full of vitamins and minerals, and it's the best way to get it as opposed to supplements or really any other types of food. So
I mean, my athlete back here behind this door, he has a smoothie every day, and it's full of fruits and vegetables. Because I'm the mom around here, and I throw a bunch of greens in his smoothies as well. And depending on where you rank avocado in there, whether it's a fruit or a vegetable, economically a vegetable on some people's plates, but definitely a fruit. So yeah, it was a fascinating read, and leads you up to this weekend. So good luck for all those Chiefs fans out there. I'm a Chiefs fan by proxy. My entire family in Kansas City is excited. And if the Vikings ever make it back to the Super Bowl, then my poor husband would be happy, but I don't have a dog in this fight other than the Chiefs.
Well, we never know how quickly these come and go away. We thought, actually, as Royals fans, we always thought it was a flash in the pan. So when we got a World Series Game 7 loss followed by the next year by a World Series win, that's pretty much it for our lifetime. Maybe the Chiefs have some staying power. They've got a quarterback who's incredible, who's 24 years old. So hopefully they do, and hopefully this is the beginning of many more. But we got to live in the moment, enjoy this Sunday. I already got my avocados all ripe and in the crisper drawer, ready to pull out. So
Yep. See, now's your last warning. If you haven't bought your avocados yet, Friday, buy them Friday, and they leave them on the counter, and they should be perfect on Sunday. That's my advice. All right, well, that's it for the Produce Reporter Week in Review. If you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you need to go to producebluebook.com and sign up.